Sabri Suby joins me now in the studio.
I really look at business as an incredible vehicle to really make good and make change in the world.
Hey guys, Sabri Suby here, and in this week's video, I'm gonna be talking to you about the power pyramid and flooding the Nile. So what I see, and from all of my community online and questions and emails that I get every single day, is really people focusing on the minute little things that really have zero throughput to kind of what the overarching goal that someone's trying to achieve. And what I specifically mean by that is like people are, always asking about like, what is the landing page software that I use, right? What is the specific ad strategy that I should do? What is the sales script that I should use on the telephone? And like, don't get me wrong, like all of these things are important, but they are not the main thing. And if you're really looking at like, how do you optimize the absolute living shit out of your entire life and get the ultimate output and throughput with your energy and your time and get the most substantial results, it really comes down to what I call the power pyramid. As you can see on this thing, the top most important thing and the thing that commands the largest layer here is sleep. So when people ask me like, okay, hey, I'm looking to grow my business, or I'm really trying to, double the amount of leads that I'm getting, or I've been trying to hit this goal for so long and I'm unable to do that. The first place that I really look at is like, how are they as a functioning human being, right? And the first thing that's gonna make the most impact on them as a functioning human being is going to be the length and also the quality of the sleep that they get. What I'm gonna do is today I'm gonna work you down and I'm gonna show you like how to really just optimize yourself, and as a result of how to optimize your business and just get the most output. So first, when it comes to sleep, I'll just tell you some of the things that I have done and that I've tried myself and I have split tested to see what has had the most profound impact on my sleep. The first one is really having the ability to track your sleep, because if you're trying sleep experiments and what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, what you're eating before bed, all of those kind of things, if you don't have a tool to measure them, you're not gonna really be able to know the results, right? So that's the very first thing that you wanna do. Is there's a whole bunch of different kind of technology that you can look into that tracks your sleep. The one that I recommend is the Oura Ring. I've been using this for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's incredible. So that's the very first step. And then what you really wanna do is, most people are like, hey Sabri, like what time do you wake up? Do you use an alarm clock? Do you know all of these different things? The thing that I have found is the most important, more so than what time do you wake up and setting an alarm to wake up, is really having a set time that you go to sleep every night, right? For me, I hate waking up with an alarm clock. And that was one of the things that I have like kind of flagged is like, I don't want to have to do that in my life. So what I have found is the most beneficial is to have an alarm of the time that I must go to sleep. And what you really want to do is you want to keep split testing and optimizing what time that you go to bed and what time that your normal circadian rhythm is going to wake you up in the morning. And if you know that you want to start your day at say 5 o'clock in the morning, what you want to do is keep on going to bed earlier, every day, and find out what time that you would have to go to bed to naturally have your body wake up at that time. Because that's gonna be the best indicator of kind of how much time that you need to sleep and what is gonna suit you the best. And also when you wear like a sleep tracker like the Oura Ring, it starts to optimize and start to look at the trends of your resting heart rate and your deep sleep and your REM sleep, and it starts to suggest to you what time that you should go to bed, right? So I like to just kind of work out what that time is for myself. For me, I go to bed very early, right? I have a kind of belief that like really nothing great is gonna be happening in terms of you having a lot more output and a lot more enjoyment after 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And in order to wake up at the time that I wake up, I have split tested over the years to find out what that optimal time is. And that's the first thing that you really want to look at. Now, the next thing is creating a nighttime routine. A lot of people talk about having like a morning routine where they wake up and they exercise and they have their coffee and they don't check their emails and all of those kind of things. Because sleep and recovery is really the most important thing. It's incredibly important to have a nighttime routine. And when I say like it's the most important thing, well, I look at entrepreneurship as being an athlete, right? And if you have a look at athletes and what is it that they do, they're spending 80% of their time really on rest and recovery and stretching and injury prevention. And it's no different with an entrepreneur because, what we'll get to in this power pyramid is that it's really all about managing energy, not managing time. So with all of that said, you need to kind of be looking at ways that you can recover and you can reset so the next day you have the most high quality, clean energy that you can to burn so you can get the most output. Where that all starts is setting up your sleep routine at night and your nighttime routine. Like, what is it that you're doing? For myself, like I have a sauna and a cold plunge every night, and I do 2 rounds of 20 minutes in the sauna at an extreme heat. Then I'll do 5 minutes in the cold plunge, full submersion, back into the sauna. Then it's typically a herbal tea, spending some time with my wife, unwinding, try to avoid screens, an hour before bed and all of that kind of stuff, and really start to kind of unwind and reset. And for me, that's the thing that just cleans the slate. For you, you might not have a sauna, you might not enjoy saunas or cold plunges. It's not about what I do, it's all about what works for you. And the only way that you're gonna know that is just by trying multiple things, right? Herbal teas are great, like chamomile tea. There's one called sleepy time tea. It just depends on where you are in the world and where you're watching this from. But that's something that I've definitely tried and has had a huge impact. Also, lighting and the mood. I have all the lights in my house dimmable. I'm wanting to use warmer lights before going to bed, and that's because blue lights affect your sleep. The biggest takeaway is just finding out a sleep routine that's gonna work for you and a nighttime routine that's going to like just remove any stress, any anxiety, any noise and chaoticness that's taking place in your mind. It might be some breathing exercises. It might be a long walk with your pet or your partner or by yourself. It might be meditation. You just really need to try what those things are for you. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is magnesium. In terms of supplements, this is going to be the only one that I have really personally split tested and that I recommend. You've got like daytime formulas and you've got nighttime formulas for magnesium. You want to make sure that you're getting a nighttime one that might have sour cherry or some other ingredient that really promotes deep sleep. And the way that I run all these split tests is by isolating the variable. So the last thing that you want to do is go out and do everything that I'm telling you to do, because then you don't know which ones are working. You slowly want to introduce things and different habits, and then you want to really track and monitor the impact that that's having on your sleep. So the first thing might be what time you go to bed. Then it might be, okay, herbal teas and all those other different things. And then the next one would be like a magnesium. This was something that I just saw dramatically extended the amount of deep sleep that I was having. So I do recommend giving that one a shot. And the next one is getting a good bed, right? So the real things that you want to invest in and over-invest in is really a good pair of shoes and a good bed. Because if you're not in one, you're in the other, right? And you just need to make sure that you have high quality products when it comes to those two things. People like some mattresses hard, soft, foam, latex, spring, whatever it is. I'm not gonna get into the specifics of all of those kind of things. I'm biased, I use a client's products in that space, but get a good bed, right? If you've got a partner and there's somebody else or kids in your bed or whatever it might be, make sure that you get a king bed, get a very good quality bed. Don't be a cheap ass, over-indexing that. Like people spend, $1,000, $2,000 on an iPhone and they've got a shitty bed. It's like sell your iPhone and go buy a good quality bed and also get a good quality pillow. When it comes down to sleep, right? And when you're thinking about your sleep, there's a lot of arguments about like, should I get 6 hours? Should I get 8 hours? Is it 7? Is it 9? It all depends. Right? It all depends on yourself and where you feel the most rested. And the only way that you can figure that out is by split testing and by trying it. But the number one overarching hack is don't focus on setting an alarm clock, right? Where you're disrupting your sleep cycle based on, an arbitrary time that you've kind of set to wake up every day. Rather than that is just find out what time that you need to go to bed in order to naturally wake up at that time. If you do that one thing alone, you are going to be such a more well-balanced, well-rested, and efficient human being. The quality of your decisions will be better. Everything that you do stems from how rested you are. All the other throughputs, the ads, the funnels, the sales calls, all the sexy shit that you probably want to get to and talk about is all rested upon how well of a functioning human being you are. And the biggest thing that's going to impact that is your sleep. So moving on, the secondary most important thing, that I have found is really diet. The thing is, I'm not a nutritionist, and there's going to be so many people that if I try to give specific nutrition advice in this video are going to come out, right? The paleo camp's going to come out, the vegan camp, all these different schools of thoughts of people are going to come out and they're going to be like, this is my way of doing it, or I can't believe you recommended that. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of how I operate. I'll just talk about a few overarching things that I fundamentally believe in and that have served me well and hopefully will serve you well. So the first is just to make sure that you're really eating unprocessed organic foods, right? I know that that's like a hot debate in terms of, organic versus non-organic, all of that kind of stuff. The thing that I will say is that in my opinion, the further away you get away from just being able to pull like a carrot out of the ground and eat it, the worse off you are, right? So, naturally you want to be eating foods that are unprocessed as possible, that don't have any chemicals, that don't have all of these things, because, you want to basically be eating the way that nature intended. And the more human intervention that there is with things, the more that it just impacts and causes a whole downstream and second order consequences that we won't get to in this video. But what I have found in terms of the cleanest energy source is just trying to keep the food with as little as ingredients as possible. Like if they have no ingredients, the better you're gonna be, right? And the more unprocessed they are, the better it's gonna be for you as well. And then, like my stance, I guess, on like no alcohol and no drugs, like, I might have alcohol once or twice a year, right? It just absolutely fucks up your whole productivity, right? And it's not about like the next day, it's about the following days and what happens as a result of that. And most people are like, oh, I don't really see how it affects me. Start monitoring your sleep and you will see, right? You will start to see that the days like that you do drink alcohol, or even the following days of that, the recourse of that decision is really like 4 days that you're losing to be at optimal output. And for me, like, it's just not worth that trade-off. Like a short-lived bit of enjoyment is the repercussions of that so long into it, it's just not worth it for where I am at and the things that are important to me and that I am optimizing for. And I'm not saying that you need to become like some monk that lives in the mountain that doesn't have enjoyment. I'm just saying that you need to be aware of that there are trade-offs, and to think that you can be, at a complete functioning level as somebody that is doing all the right things and you're introducing some of the wrong things like alcohol and drugs, like you're just gonna get your lunch eaten, seriously, by somebody that has very clean signal, clean energy, and is optimizing, the living shit out of their life. So that's just the things that I have found, when I stopped, drinking and I stopped going out and partying on weekends and drinking alcohol, is just the amount of output that I had was just ridiculous. And I couldn't even compare it. And that led me to those decisions. And look, it's the same with drugs. Then the next point to discuss is exercise. With exercise, again, I'm no personal trainer. I'm not training for Mr. Olympia. I am not an expert within this field. The advice, that I'm giving you is just based on me being an entrepreneur and the positive impacts that I have seen. So, exercising in the morning, whatever it is, whether it's running, it's weightlifting, just make sure that it's rigorous. And the way that I look at this is like, if you're sleeping for 7 to 8 hours a night and your body is in the sedentary stage, right? Your depth of your breath is very shallow when you're sleeping. It's like, and basically like, just think about the capacity of your lungs is usually at 100%. If you do a deep in breath and a long out breath. And when you're sleeping, you're maybe using 30% of that. And there's like, shallow breath to just get stuck in your lungs that you don't completely exhale. And your heart rate is very low. And your blood is not really filtering and doing anything crazy because there's no more movement. You're in a very sedentary stage. So the thing that you want to do, to break that, well, the last thing that you want to do is we're going to apply like the inversion mental model is just to basically wake up from your bed and walk over to your computer and then sit down for another 7 to 8 hours. And that's what most people do, right? And if you look at that, the extended period of time that you would be sedentary in doing that, right? It's like 7 hours of sleep, 7 hours of working. There's 14 hours there of like literally just not moving your body. And that is definitely not the way that human beings were designed to operate. So you want to make sure that you wake up. I don't care if you say that you're a morning person, that you're not a morning person. You need to elevate that heart level early in the morning and make whatever you're doing just incredibly rigorous and make it intense. Now that filters your blood, it oxygenates your blood, it changes your state, it awakens all the cells in your body, and then you are rearing to go. Me personally, I don't like to have caffeine before I do those things. I want to naturally create an environment where I have to push through that adversity in the morning because it gives you that mental edge. So that's something that has worked well. I've split tested mornings, afternoons, all of those kind of things. If you're weightlifting, yes, you can lift heavier in the afternoon probably than you can in the morning, but you're not getting the same benefits of really parlaying that energy and that activation in the morning to the rest of the activities that you got to do throughout the day. So yeah, they're really my only rules around exercise. I'm not going to get into the specifics on it, is just make it rigorous and try to do it, every morning. That's the things. I have measured the days where I don't exercise in the morning versus the days that I do, and the output is just not the same. Now, the next thing is really optimizing your environment. Okay, so what I will say on this topic is that like when it comes to the place that you're spending the most amount of time, like for me, I spend a disproportionate amount of time in my office. So therefore, I want my environment in my office to be very pleasant. And I want it to be very pleasant for, all the team members that work in the office as well. And right now, with all lockdowns and all of the shenanigans that are taking place, that's even more important than creating a nice home working environment. Because is it something that you're gonna be spending, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours at per day? You need to make sure that it's a place that's very comfortable. So some of the ways and things that I do to kind of hack that is, warm lighting. I always make sure that everywhere that I'm working, I'm gonna have like non-fluorescent dimmable lights. I like to have a salt lamp. I use like oil diffusers to make sure that the scent is nice. There's a whole bunch of triggers that you can use, right? Like earthy materials, nice scents, good lighting, lots of greenery and plants and natural sunlight. So they're the things that, I found that are a huge needle mover in terms of your environment. Don't have like your office in like some like converted laundry or in your cupboard or some place that doesn't get light, that's depressing, that you're not really excited about working at, because that's just going to create a negative anchor for your working environment. Where is your power source of where you're going to be pushing out into the world and into the marketplace for and trying to create maximum output? And it just doesn't make sense if it's not a place that you naturally want to spend time in. So if there's any place that you're going to spend a bit of more money on, and some people go out and spend enormous amounts of money on couches to sit down and watch television for an hour or two a night. but they don't get a good chair or a good computer or a nice office to work out of. So that's a really important thing to kind of optimize. Smells and visuals, anything that you're looking at. I've got abstract art in my office and plants and, memorabilia of, successes and just things that remind me of like what I'm doing it for and things that make me feel good, right? What I've found is that plants just have an incredible, and there's a lot of science behind it, greenery and plants, they just increase how happy that you feel. So that's something that is very inexpensive that you can go out and get. And you want to find a plant that you don't need to put an enormous amount of effort into for it to stay alive. So moving on is, the next one is focus, right? And then the last point that I'm going to be talking about is tools. A question that comes up very frequently is like, how do you stay motivated? Like when you don't feel like getting after it, how do you get after it, right? And how do you stay motivated throughout the day and stay focused on the main things? Well, the mental model that I like to apply when it comes to focus is just to think about, well, what is the inverse of focus? It's distraction, and then cutting out any and all distractions that are frequent in your life, right? Notifications on your phone, chat if you're using Gmail or any mail app or Slack or all of these notifications. Basically, what you want to do is create moats around yourself so that distractions cannot creep in and bleed out of your focus. So if you think about all the things in your life that distract you, just get rid of them, right? If you're working in an office with a team, like the whole a minute meetings, they are like a death of 1,000 cuts, where it's like, hey, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? For me, I don't have any minutes. The only days that I have minutes for anybody is on a Monday, on a Friday. So the way that I optimize my week is by creating a moat around myself from Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And they're my deep work days where no one is allowed to schedule any time with me in my company. I have no meetings. I'm not available to chat. I'm not available for you to come and talk to me. And everyone in my company knows that. I am in my dungeon. I am in deep work. You cannot call me unless it's some kind of complete emergency and the building is on fire. Do not contact me on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So that's the first elimination, right? Is meetings and chat and people wanting something from my time is a complete no-no. Then the next thing really around that is notifications, technology, your phone, any other requirement for your attention is you want to eliminate. I don't have Facebook or any of that crap on my phone. You need to get rid of that. And if you've got notifications on, turn them off. Just if you use an iPhone, go into the notification settings and click the universal settings to turn notifications off for everything. And that's the way that you want to operate. And then when you're working, is your phone should be off. It should be on airplane mode. It should be out of sight. You have the best game theorist and behavioral designers and engineers on planet Earth designing to keep you addicted to technology because that's how they make money, right? They make money from you on their phone. So instead of using discipline and willpower not to pick up your phone and check Instagram or your email or your SMSs or the 1,001 other kind of apps that you would have, is just remove them. Because then it's not a constant demand on your willpower. You've only got so much willpower to give, and you don't want to deploy it against complete mindless nonsense like notifications for a social media app on your phone. It does not matter if somebody messaged you or tweeted you or mentioned you. Who gives a shit about that stuff, right? That's not the main thing. So what you really want to do is remove that, and remove the need for you to have to flex your muscle that is discipline to focus, right? You just want to eliminate all the things that don't help you focus. And the biggest key that I can give you around that is creating moats. My wife knows never to call me unless it is an emergency if I am at work. because I am at work, to be able to give back to the family and do all the things that it is that I need to do. And then when I finish work, I can go and give 100% of my time to my kids and to my wife, and I can be engaged with them because I've created those moats. But what most people do is that they are constantly available and they have no moats, and they're working and they're constantly attending to other things, whether it's family or co-workers or all these other things, and then they never really finish work. And they finish up for the day, and they're constantly having to reply to emails and text messages, and the quality of time that they spend with their family or their loved ones and their individuals are completely eroded because they haven't been able to create those moats around themselves. So, get on the same page with your partner or your co-workers or the other people that rely on you, and just say, hey, you cannot contact me. Anything short of a nuclear attack, do not contact me on these times. Remove any other and all distractions to create that moat. So then you can really dial in your focus and you can get the most amount of output while you're focusing on whatever it is that you happen to be focusing on that given time. Last but not least is tools. When you look at the power pyramid, right, and I use the power pyramid to do something that I call flooding the NILE, right, which is just to get the most amount of output humanly possible and optimize all the different areas of your life. Most people have this power pyramid inverted. They believe that they need to get the latest MacBook Pro to be really productive, or they believe that the secret lies in some productivity app or some journal that they need, and a tool or a tactic or some, useless piece of technology to get the most out of it. And it's really the opposite of what you need. You need to be focusing on everything else that I've spoken about that is really commanding the largest part of the pyramid when you're looking at output. Now, that's not to say that your tools aren't important and the software and stuff that you use aren't important, but they are the least important out of everything. Now that we are here, let's focus on them. But I want you setting up and focusing on this. I'm gonna make this available as a download in the description as well, so you can print it out and focus on it and look at it and just ruthlessly execute against this thing. But I really want you to spend the proportionate amount of time on tools as that I've really showed you here. So it should be the least important thing of everything. But with all of that said, first thing that you want to do is make sure that you are using a good computer, right? If you've got the money to do it, you do need to buy a fully spec'd out computer and make sure that the monitor is big enough for you to be super, super productive. Just getting a 1 or 2 second efficiency by processing power has a huge amount of output difference that you're gonna have, right? So make sure that you've got a good computer and it is spec'd up. Now, also the first thing that I can see is if I go and I sit next to somebody and I see how they use their computer, I need to do one thing to improve their efficiency by double. Right? And it's typically getting their mouse speed and dragging it up to full. If I can see someone's got their mouse speed at 50%, it's just oh my God, you poor child, what have you been doing? Let me show you the way, right? And it does take some while to get used to, but it's these little speed improvements and these micro optimizations that give you a lot of efficiency when it comes to tools. So the first thing that you want to do is mouse. That's the way that you're going to be using your main piece of machinery to do your work and navigating around that. So it only makes sense if you can navigate around it quicker, you're gonna get more output. The next thing is typing speed. I recommend that you dedicate half an hour to an hour a week on improving the speed in which you type. Again, this is at the top of the tool pyramid because most people write a lot of emails. They communicate through chat. Most of what we do, and the way that we communicate is 70% of it is through the written word and typing and replying and doing all of these kind of things. So if you can naturally do that a lot quicker, if you can double the rate and the speed in which you type, it just has a profound impact on everything. The amount of emails that you can get out or responses and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely a recommendation and the place that I look. The next is shortcuts. If you're using a Mac you need to make sure that you become very familiar with all of the shortcuts. You know, it's like switching in between apps without doing it with a mouse and just doing it with a keyboard command. You need to know all the keyboard commands. Again, if you're using a Mac, make sure that you have hot corners set up. Make sure that you know all the shortcuts, you can get around and navigate around your machine quickly. Same thing as you're on a PC. There's a whole bunch of shortcuts you can use to drive your machinery. And then also if you're using Gmail, there's a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts that just take these things that you do every single day, oftentimes hundreds of times per day, and give you a 1 to 2, maybe even a 5-second efficiency on an activity that you do thousands of times per week. Again, it has a very profound impact. So make sure that you are very familiar with the keyboard shortcuts and shortcuts to get around your computer. I'm amazed at how many people spend 8 hours a day on the computer and they don't know how to use the thing. So that's definitely a recommendation that I've got for you. The next thing is to really create a schedule and to create a calendar. I have all of my meetings with my team on a Monday and on a Friday. So I have found that like batching and really managing my energy by batching on tasks has been a huge, huge game changer for me. So when I went from splitting my day up and batching, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays is deep work. It's what I'm focused on in the trenches, got my laser beams focused on the activities that I need to do to propel my company forward, and not breaking those activities up with sporadic meetings is when I saw a huge disproportionate amount of output that I was getting. So most people will scatter a whole bunch of meetings throughout the week and they're constantly like, they are paying the energy tax of switching in between tasks and getting in the different mindsets of, okay, now I'm dealing with problem solving in a meeting. Now I'm trying to write copy. Now I'm trying to think of big picture strategic things, incentive structures within my organization, org charts, recruiting, vision, principles, mission, or like there's just too much diverse areas that you're gonna need to be focused on an entrepreneur. And if you're trying to break up all of your time, you pay a huge tax from doing that. So set up a schedule and make it religion, right? For me, it's reoccurring meetings. I'm not using any time and energy wondering how about to set up a meeting. It's a reoccurring task. If it's not, my EA or professional fixer will sort that out for me, but make sure that you set that up. Then in terms of your calendar, for me, my calendar runs my life. So if it's not on my calendar, that it doesn't exist, because I don't want to have a notepad, a calendar, an email, a to-do list, a phone to-do list, and all of these different things that require my attention. I want to wake up and look at my calendar and know exactly what it is that I am going to be working on for today. I don't want to apply any mental energy around what I'm going to be doing. I have already set that up the day before or the week before. So realistically, the way that I recommend doing it is to set, I'm not going to go into it in huge details because I've got another video on YouTube about this, but it's setting up your year and planning, the goals and everything that you're trying to achieve in that year, then breaking it down into quarters, then breaking those quarters down into months, and those months into weeks, and then those weeks into days. And then executing just violently every single day. You don't want to be waking up every day and thinking about, oh, what am I going to work on today? No. You want to plant in your subconscious the night before what you're going to be working on the next day, and wake up, look at it, and just get after it straight away and not use any energy or bandwidth thinking about what it is that you're going to be focusing on. Your schedule is really dictated by your calendar. So most people only schedule their work activities, where I recommend scheduling even your recreational activities, whether it's calling, your mom, or going for a walk, or exercising, or what time that you go to bed. I talk about having mental RAM and bandwidth. Like, your brain is like a computer. You've only got so much RAM and memory that you can store the active tasks that you've got open in your brain. So if you're constantly thinking about all the things that you've got to do this week or this month and trying not to forget about it, or I've got to remember to call that person, that's all RAM that you're utilizing on mindless shit that could just be in your calendar and then you don't need to remember it. The computer and the calendar will remember for it, and then you can focus your energy, your time, and your activity on the things that are really going to move the money needle in your business. And the last point that I will make with all of this, right, with the whole thing about flooding the Nile, it's all about managing energy, not just time. And that's why I have such an importance on sleep and on rejuvenation and exercise and food, is because they are the inputs that are going to give you the energy to function as a human being. A lot of people talk about sitting down and working continuously for 8, 9, 12 hours and being sedentary the whole time. You know, if you can get way more done than a person that is just sitting down and looking at clocking in 12 hours, right? The quality of that time is not going to be the same at the end of those 12 hours that it is at the beginning of those 12 hours, right? So therefore, it's really about managing the rhythm of your energy, right? Just like most people are very aware of like rhythms that are present, like the number one is like the circadian rhythm, you know, that is like the whole oscillating of the sun and someone's sleep and sleeping in cycles of 90 minutes and then breaking that rest cycle. But they also exist in all other areas of your life. So for me, I found the best way to work is to sit down in 45 to 60 minute intervals of just absolute intense focus. Email off, phone off, and you're really managing your energy and not just time. Don't look at how many hours that you're clocking in, but look at really the quality of those hours and how clean your thinking is and how much output that you're getting. And by going through the power pyramid, that's going to allow you to get the cleanest energy source into your body as possible and optimize your life from the top down so that you will go out there and get the most amount of output. So there you have it. That is the flooding the Nile strategy and specifically the power pyramid. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. We're dropping a video like this almost every single day on YouTube. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments box below with hashtag HeySabri, and I'll do my best to get in there and get that answered.